Do you feel like your social media growth has halted online? Or maybe, are you just not too sure how to continue to scale the good things that you've started? Well, today I want to share 3 foundational steps that the early church used to grow and how you can use these same principles to grow your reach online. You've got a dream to glorify God and make your mark on the world. Maybe you want to grow a business, start a ministry, or become a better servant leader. Whichever level in life you want to hit, I believe that God's calling all of us towards something greater than where we are now. So join me as I document my journey to learn how to grow an online ministry in ways that are effective, biblical, and aren't stuffed with complicated religious or business mumbo-jumbo. My name is Alec Kassan, and welcome to the Digital Ministry Mastermind Podcast. Hey, what is going on, current Christian family? It is Alec here, and I'm just really excited to be here with you in this next episode. So this episode, we'll see how it's going to go lengthwise. I really want to give you guys a lot of value in this. So please don't hate me if it gets kind of heady at points, but I really wanted to make sure I was giving you some great stuff. Now, I won't be going in depth on the various aspects of church history. I know in the title, I talk about how it's like the same 3 steps that the early church used to grow their church. But I plan to just kind of simply paint an overview of the same tactics that Paul used to help establish Christianity as one of, the most popular beliefs in the world. I'm just saying, Jesus is pretty awesome. Anyway, so the strategies that I'll be talking about will not only help grow your communities online, but it will scale them as well. And, be sure to stick around to the end of this episode, as I will be talking about how you can find the best platform that will bring you a lot of followers and will also help you find your most ideal customers fast. So here are the 3 foundational steps to growing your reach online and making a bigger impact in the lives of your ideal customers or audience. So first thing you need to understand is this. Number 1, don't try to create customers or followers. It's like, wait, don't try to create customers. Isn't that what you're talking about? No. Sure, you want to get customers, get followers, but you don't want to create them. Simply put yourself in front of them. I talked about this point in previous episode, but when it comes to getting people to maybe your church website or your ministry social media page, it isn't about trying to create customers or followers. The goal is to find them and simply direct some of them to your page. When Paul was doing his ministry, he made an effort to put himself in areas that already had a lot of people in them. Clearly, rarely if ever do we read about Paul sharing good news to people on vacant roads or barren deserts. What we see Paul do is he goes to the most well-populated cities like Ephesus so that he will be in front of people who are already there. And, we should be doing the same online. What are the high traffic places for you, for your customers or your audience? It might be Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and you could be like Paul and go on these platforms that already have millions and even billions of people. And, it's like these platforms are already congregating a lot of people. So you just have to go there to be in front of them. And it's like, oh, of course, Alec, you make it sound so easy. Of course, that's just all you got to do. But yeah, I know it's a little more complicated than that. And so just bear with me for a second, because if you aren't too sure which platform you want to use, obviously don't try to use all of them at once. You're just going to wear yourself out. And, at the end of this episode, I'll actually talk about which platform might be best for you. So before you start making profiles on any platform, you should understand this next step. The second step is you got to establish yourself in one place before moving on to another. So when we read about Paul's ministry, we often overlook the time frame of his travels. Since reading one letter and then moving on to the next is as easy as just kind of flipping a few pages, we lose sight of the time frame between Paul's writings, which can often spread out for multiple years. So you see, when Paul was writing to the people in Ephesus, for example, he spent 3 years ministering there before he ever wrote the letter of Ephesians. And the reason why Paul would stay so long in one area before moving on to the next was so that he could do a few things. And the main one was, he'd understand the area, he'd understand the culture and the people there, And another is that he'd establish a relationship with them there before trying to move on to another area. Because when he does that, guess what? He's going to have to build even more relationships with those people in those new places. So Paul was able to speak to the hearts of the people because he actually knew the people. He was also able to speak to the people in a language that they understood because he understood the lingo that the people spoke. So, for example, it's believed that the analogies that Paul used in his letters were more than just, some super creative ways of trying to get his point across. He didn't use analogies to just sound smart, I'm sure maybe a little bit, but anyway, Paul wrote about things like running the race, putting on the armor of God, or even winning the good fight. And he did this because the people he wrote to could connect with that message. The readers understood the mechanics of racing. So when he was writing that to the people, he knew the people reading it probably were good runners. They liked watching running or something like that. And the significance of putting on the armor of God, people were familiar with that. And the strategy to winning in battles, they were like, oh, this makes sense. It's rooted in something that I understand, you see? So these analogies were something that made foreign concepts feel closer to home for these people who never knew God. But the only reason and the only way that Paul was able to craft such impactful messages was because he understood the culture and the people who he was writing to. And I'm sure you've encountered this feeling where maybe you used a new app and found yourself confused just by the terminology or the layout of the whole thing. Or maybe you've gone to a new restaurant. So let's say, you normally get coffee at Dunkin' Donuts, and then you decide, hey, I'm going to try Starbucks out for once. And then you find yourself asking, what in the world is a venti? And, do you guys offer anything in small? It's like, what? So it's literally a new language when you go in there. So when you're picking a platform on social media to publish your material on, you are essentially picking a place for your ministry to live. And when you pick that location, you need to understand the culture and the people in it so that you can better minister and impact the people on that platform. But, doing that takes time. Imagine the frustration and the stress of moving to an area, staying there for a week, and then moving on to a new area while also still trying to write and minister to the people from the previous location, and then just keep that pattern going for a couple months. Just imagine how overwhelming that would feel and how underwhelming your impact would actually be. So if Paul needed to spend years to truly understand the culture and lingo of the people group where he was living, we too got a plan to spend at least a single year on one social media platform in order to master it before just adding another one to our to-do list. I, for one, plan to spend an entire year doing these podcasts before I even attempt to master another platform. And the reason why is because, it's the same reason why Paul spent years in the same location. I want to know what kind of content podcasters listen to and enjoy. And I want to make episodes that podcast websites promote to my ideal audience. And, I want to create just the best overall experience for people who end up finding these episodes. But the only way I can do this is if my focus is on podcasts and nothing else. So, third and final strategy is this. You got to learn from the best of the best. Now, this might not sound groundbreaking at first, but hear me out. In the Bible, Paul was a fairly, new follower of Jesus when he accepted sharing good news with the Gentiles. But he was also a very well-educated Jewish man. In fact, Paul repeatedly points out in his letters about his superior education and quote-unquote righteous standing amongst the Jewish community there. And this world-class education was meant to equip, it's really cool. So Paul grew up around influential and well-spoken individuals his entire life. So when it came time for him to apply his smarts and public speaking skills, he was able to just plant churches and just start teaching lessons and, continue to just impact people. But Paul was fortunate enough to have learned those skills that were not only needed to expand his ministry and impact on the world, but like he had public speaking skills and an understanding of Roman and Jewish law and culture, which was crucial for his ability to spread the good news. Now, fortunately for us, we don't have as many restrictions as Paul did. We're blessed to have multiple mediums to share our messages on, whereas like Paul only had two. He could either speak to people face to face or write letters to them. But we could do animated videos, comics, cartoons, letters, podcasts. It's it's very it's limitless. But if we're to master a social media platform in the same way that Paul mastered public speaking or even writing, we need to seek guidance from the best. So what does this look like? Well, I don't mean like hire a social media agency or work your way into being mentored by the top influencers in your industry. And I mean, although that wouldn't be a bad thing, but what I mean is that you should follow the influencers who are winning on social media. So whatever platform you want to be using, find out who's doing the best on that platform and try to follow what they're doing. Essentially, you could literally follow them, on social media, subscribe, whatever, but monitor their posts. Use what you see to inspire you for how you should structure your own content. And I'm not talking about copying. I'm talking about learning the practices that they use and applying it to your own. So who are the top experts? Who are the top influencers in your market that are on that specific social media platform that you want to use? And pretty much ask yourself, who on this platform has quote unquote figured it out? Who has identified the customers that you want to share your product or your service, your ministry, your message to? And after you find and follow each of these influencers and experts, you got to ask yourself, what are they posting? How are they getting people to engage with their posts? What paid ads are they running? Are they running any ads? And when you study these people's content, I want you to notice the patterns of what's working right now and model it for your posts. Try to look at the most trending hashtags and the most popular posts in those trending hashtags for your market. Because by doing it like this, you are pretty much ensuring that your pages will remain relevant and pretty much will always be at the cutting edge of what's trending on that platform. If you go buy a book talking about how to do well on Instagram, but the book was published back in 2012, it's I'm sorry, it's very out of date now. But since you're examining the patterns of what popular channels are currently doing, if something new is introduced and it results in a lot of traffic coming to the pages who are doing that thing, then I bet that those popular pages will be one of the first people to really start implementing it and mastering it. And if you're studying the models of these people's channels and you're applying what they do to your own channel, then this means you'll be right there alongside them, kind of reaping the rewards that come from being the first one who's able to implement the new stuff that these social media platforms are rolling out. Now, you might still be wondering okay, this sounds great, but what platform should I do? Which one would be best for my ministry? If I'm going to be devoting an entire year to one platform, I want to make sure it's the right one. And that's an important question, and it sure is an important decision to make, especially if you're going to plan a whole year to just trying to master that platform. So to help you pick the best social media platform that's best for you, I'm going to describe the types of content that at least I found works best for each platform. So if you're interested in using Facebook, then your main focus should really be posting about current events, your own personal stories, or using Facebook Live. From what I've heard from different experts who are doing really well on Facebook right now, the Facebook algorithm tends to really favor people going live on the platform. I don't know why. So, but if you want to boost your exposure and viewership, then going live is definitely the way to do it on Facebook. Plus, Facebook also prefers people to post native on their content. And if you're like, what does native mean? Well, like native basically means that they would rather you upload a video or write a blog post on their site rather than doing it on another site and then just like posting the link in your Facebook status or something like that. You know, Facebook basically just wants people to stay on Facebook. So if you're posting links that bring people to another site, Facebook's not going to be too quick to promote that post as much as they would if you wrote the blog post on there, if you uploaded the video on there. And also, you know, a lot of people post about their personal lives and thoughts on Facebook, which means, you know, the type of content you post, when it's on Facebook, it really should feel like you are inviting people into your personal life too. So if that doesn't sound like you, then what about Instagram? So Instagram, it also favors content that feels personal in nature, but for businesses, ministries, and personal brands, you definitely want to post content that gives like maybe more of like a behind the scenes type of feel to your audience. You know, people love learning about the things you do behind the scenes, and Instagram is a great platform to do that on. And with the ability to go live on there or post videos, photos, and you know, the content doesn't even have that thing where it goes away after 24 hours. I mean, you could do that as well. Like honestly, like it gives you a lot that you can do with just a single app. But if you would like to get more professional with like the video production aspect of things, and of course, you know, boom, YouTube, that might be much closer to what you're looking for. But the main benefit with YouTube is that it's essentially a search engine. You know, you could imagine like when people are like, oh, look for an answer, you know, what do they say? They say Google it. And that's what a lot of people do on YouTube. They go on there to search for answers. So if you offer information that is kind of like how-to-ish in nature, or if you're able to adapt your content into like a how-to 5 tips to whatever type of format, then you're going to be able to like beautifully leverage that that search engine functionality that's on YouTube. But let's say, you know, you like doing instructional content, but you're a bit camera shy, you know, you don't, not too tech savvy, then maybe writing blogs. You know, blogs are a great way to get content out there, especially if it's like informational in nature, you know. And this content, you know, it's going to be like kind of like a how-to style, since you'll be leveraging basically like Google and Bing. I don't think people use Yahoo really anymore, but you know, typically blogs, they're like longer forms of content that's structured in like a list format. So think about it of like, you know, top 10 list, or blogs, or talk about the 7 steps to achieving something that you desire, or, you know, whatever. So, you know, these lists, they should be filled with examples, and they go into detail in order to like provide as much value as you can. And then lastly, saving the best for last. No, but the last thing I got on here is podcasts. So if you have a voice that kind of can keep people feeling engaged, then this might be the platform for you. You know, podcasts are also a great place to conduct interviews and post episodes that house conversations with experts on particular topics. And podcasts also tend to be like the least involved from a technical angle, but they're definitely more difficult to attract an audience to, since most podcast platforms, to be honest, they kind of like lack like a social feed similar to like Facebook or Instagram. However, if you have some interesting things that you like to talk about and you have an interesting voice, then this might be the platform for you. And for example, when it comes to tech, I am literally using my iPhone headphones, the ones with the cable that came with it. I don't know what it is. I've tried other mics. This one it does the best for me. You know, when it comes down to me upgrading a microphone, I think I'll do that. But for now, it's literally just my phone and headphones. So I want to know, what platform will you choose to house your ministry in? And hey, if you liked any of the content in this episode, then please, I ask you to subscribe. And if you think that the content from this or any other prior episodes might be helpful to a friend or family member, then I invite you to share this with them. Because hey, God is calling all of us towards something greater than where we are now. I look forward to seeing you in our next episode. Are you a Christian leader looking to develop the skills needed to maximize the fruitfulness in your daily walk with Christ? Do you want to overcome the burden of not living life to the fullest and fully step into your God-given calling? If you do, then you should get a copy of my book, Planting Your Purpose, a 20-day guide to discover God's calling. It's not just another devotional book. Planting Your Purpose is your 20-day guide that will provide you with the strategies, tools, and insights to turn things around immediately. You will learn how to avoid the top 5 mistakes Christians make when pursuing their calling in life. You'll develop more joy in your walk with Jesus and unlock the secrets to mastering integrity. And by the end of 20 days, not only will you know your calling, but you'll have an even greater sense of fulfillment and confidence in your life. Everywhere, Christians are raving about this amazing new guide to discover their God-given calling. Get your copy by clicking the link in the show notes or by going to plantingyourpurpose.com. That's plantingyourpurpose.com.